Hi, it's Dr. B. It's 6:12 p.m. on Monday evening and office hours times. I told you all that I would stay till about 6:15. If no one came on at that point, I would call it a day. So I'm going to keep this very brief. Somebody did sign up for a moment, and you know who you are. I was anxious to say hello to you, and yet that person left before I had a chance to even say hello. So I have to assume that everyone is moving along well and has no questions that they need me for clarification. So I'm not going to belabor this by expecting people to come if they don't feel the need to come. Nonetheless, I will be on every week at this time, hopefully trying to elaborate on what the issues are that we're doing in the class. So very briefly, extremely briefly, it's hard for me to be brief about most anything, as you probably realize. We're in the middle of about the first, not quite the first half of the course. This is, in my sense, an abbreviated course since it ends in November rather than in December, and trying to immerse you into the issues of needs assessment, particularly at this point, and of human resource management issues and concepts. We've been spending a lot of time, though, and I just posted a video about that a couple of hours ago, speaking to two parts of two PowerPoints about chapter 4, which really talks about considering the learning issues that you must consider as a potential instructional designer to adjust the needs assessment programs that you want to put in place to meet the needs, first of all, of the individuals who will participate, who they are, and what they need for themselves and what they need for the good of the whole with the W, and to make that all right by the how you have parsed the needs of the organization in chapter 3. So I see chapter 3 and 4 as really critical pieces, especially as you move towards the midterm. I'll speak briefly about that. I put the case study up that we're going to use, but I think I locked it out for the time being, because I don't really want you answering the case study yet until we tiptoe through the tulips here about some more issues associated with this. And it'll be a brief description of a mythical company and how it embarks on needs assessment issues. And I'm looking for your responses insofar as you understand all the things we've spoken about from August to now, August through then. So I don't want you to rush headlong into doing this without really getting your arms around all of what we will have tried to do it by that point. And so I don't feel the need to, except to tell you that it's coming. It's coming in, I think, the first week in October, I think October 7th. I'll post it up earlier than that so that you can respond to it and post it back into the assignment section of Blackboard. Enough said about that. I don't know if there's anything else. We are a little slightly behind because, again, I'm particularly concerned with your with all the things that you need to pull together in order to get this right, because it is more complex than many other things that you may be doing, in my view. So all I'm going to do is very, very briefly. Unfortunately, I don't know how to call up a graphic on this on the book, so I'm just going to point out 3 graphics in chapter 3. Okay. We already have two PowerPoints about chapter 4, and I've done a PowerPoint about chapter 3 that broadly examines many of the issues associated with your taking the pulse, if you remember the title of that particular PowerPoint. And the question is, what do you know? 3 questions are: what do you know? What do you not know? And what do you not know that you don't know? And those are the scary ones. This is true for everyone. It's not just true for HR managers. It's true for anyone responsible for most anything. What is it that you don't know? And there's an Italian phrase that goes something like this. I won't try to pronounce it in Italian, but it basically is, what's the message behind the music? What's truly going on underneath the issues that you think that are going on? And particularly in chapter 3, when you're taking the pulse on your own, because you've been charged with that, or if you're taking it with a think tank group, I hope that that's how you're doing it, or in concert, because out of the prodding or instigation of shareholders or of your superiors, or with some kind of regularity where you do needs assessment processes on some kind of rotating basis, any of those conditions. Um, you need to have the muscles, be the expert on how to tell people what it is that they don't necessarily know, or help people recognize what the messages are behind the music. And that's a deft quiver, as in arrows quiver, tools, or better yet, I guess an easier way to call it would be a deft toolkit that you need to bring that together. All the more reason to pay careful attention to what we've discussed in the PowerPoint, some of the discussion questions, and what the author speaks to very, very eloquently, I think, very well in chapter 3. I'm just going to point out really 2 or 3 graphics. I want to turn your attention back to them just to kind of refine the point. I'm going to tape this, put it up for anyone who chooses to see it. It's there for you to use as you see fit. So table 3.1 now, in my book, it's page 123. I may not be the same numbering within book the edition that you have. It's in around 123. It's in chapter 3, needs assessment. And it has a nice table there. It talks about how there's different perspectives of concerns among roles, ROLES roles, insofar as how we need to approach what a needs assessment may require. So I'm not going to read the whole table to you, but I'm going to take the first one because that's the one that catches my eye most, but it's not necessarily the only one and not necessarily the most important one. But my eyes, and I've already spoken to this in the various PowerPoints, is about organizational analysis. If the task that you're concerned about is organizational analysis, what's the perspective of the leaders versus the perspective of the mid-level folks versus the people who have to train people to take care of this issue versus the employees? We say it again. It's about perspectives, viewpoints, lenses, mindsets, if you will, about organizational analysis that has to do with how our company owner or boss may view this as a whole with a W versus how a mid-level manager, perhaps like yourself, versus the perspectives of those people who are responsible or hired, like myself, who get hired to train people like this. Sometimes you find they don't exactly know what it is that they want because they don't know what their organization is all about. That's a little scary, but it does happen. It's up to the trainer to squeeze that out of the toothpaste tube. And in the end, most importantly, what about the employers? I'm sorry, the employees, excuse me. So I'm not going to read them to you specifically, but for example, does a company leader really think this is necessary? Does it meet our building objective, our business objectives? Presuming they know what the business objectives are. That you have to listen for and say, time out. Let's pay a little more attention to this. Make sure that they do. Does the training support the strategy we're thinking about using? If you're a mid-level manager, probably more like yourself than the owners or the bosses of the company, how much money do you have? How does that steer your training? You're going to go halfway, or are you going to go insist on more money to do all of what needs to be done, or do you have to take what you have and make the most of it, which is probably the case for most any project people get charged with doing? What about the trainers? Now, the trainers have what they need to do the organizational analysis with them if they're asked to do that, which is sometimes a no-no because they don't necessarily get asked to do that. And that's a mistake on the leader's part and on the mid-manager's part if they don't insist on having that happen. Because you need the support of everyone to bring this to bear. And then when you come back to organizational analysis and the employees, why are they in it? Are they being forced to do it? Are they being forced to do it in order to keep their jobs? Do they see a connection to the purpose, the shared vision, the expectations of the whole with a W? All these things have to. How do I do it? You're going to take me off the assembly line and put me in a room with some other folks from forever, or you're going to make me do this online? How are we going to do this? Do I have the time to do this? You're going to pay me to do extra time for that? Most research shows, by the way, that when you're training employees, you don't take them, you don't expect them to do it off their time. You expect to pay them for this. It's unfair to ask them to do it outside their time expectations. Now, I'm not going to read all this, but the analyses that this chart offers, which is, again, 3.1, is by the way, organizational level, by analyzing the people more carefully to know who your people are and what it is that you need to do to adjust the perspectives as you see them and what the tasks are, I should say. Right? Do you have the people in-house, for example, to do that kind of training? Is it worth it to bring a prophet from another land, a Bernardo, or someone else who supposedly has these skills that you don't have in-house? Is that the best way to approach it? Not always. The best model I always found is to have someone inside who knows what needs to be done and has their arms around generally has their arms around what needs to be done task-wise, and then bring somebody or some people in, not just one person in, to pick up pieces of things as a co-facilitators, to use a fancy word. And so this has to go into your thinking as you consider what steps you need to take in order to make a needs assessment effective, valid. There's the key word, valid. Valid means, does it do what you want it to do? Does it really measure, or does it give you the information you need? Does it tell you what you need to know and what you don't know that you don't know? Certain sets of skills to go with that. That's one of the graphics. Another graphic is a couple of pages down. It's on my page 126. And we've done some of this in a PowerPoint. Just does a better job, I think, than I did in the PowerPoint, by pointing out all the different kinds of needs assessment techniques that you could use. You can observe, you can survey, dangerous to survey, but yes, you can survey. Interview, that's a good one. Focus groups, that's a better one. You can use records, data. You could use training manuals to see what's going on with that. Those are, I would say, the key techniques. And then the advantages of that are broken down very nicely in 3.2, as well as the disadvantages. I'm going to use a word on you I use in the PowerPoint as well. There's two kinds of information. One kind of information is quantitative, that's numbers. And the other kind of information is qualitative. That's everything but numbers in certain senses. Your feelings, people's opinions, suggestions, things that lie, rippling underneath the surface of the pond, and how you figure out where they are and how you go about using those signals to make sense of everything. It's about data. That we call it the four-letter word sometimes, I know, but it's in my view, as I've come to learn in, of course, my career, actually, that it's the qualitative data that's got the power. Quantitative data tells you what is going on. It's kind of a snapshot, where qualitative data tells you why those things are going on. Hopefully tells you why. And that takes, again, bodies of skills. So this particular table, again, on my page 126, is labeled 3.2. Was what I was going to go over with the class today, if anybody showed up. And the other thing I want to point out, which I think is a nice job, and I'll stop here, is my page 129, 3.2, the process itself. Diagrammed nicely, left to right. Talks about first you start with an organizational analysis, and then you move up and back and forth between person analysis and task analysis, and then an output. Output being what are the method or methods you're going to use. I would recommend plural, but doesn't necessarily mean that you have the resources to do that. The method, singular, or the methods, plural, that you're going to use to deliver the training. And most importantly, you'll see that on the right-hand side of the figure 3.2 rather, is how are you going to evaluate this and then plug it back into the work environment. So that's what it looks like. So again, taking 3, which is the pulse taking, and taking 4, which is the learning styles, you're beginning to accumulate a wheelbarrow filled with things that need to be sorted out and put together to move forward towards being getting to develop your own processes and approaches to needs assessing, to assessing the needs of your staff and of the company, and how they sometimes well together and sometimes how they don't. In addition to, as I said in the PowerPoint, the world out there as to whether it aligns with that as such. Okay, I don't see anybody, so I'm going to sign off. I'm going to record this and post it. And again, I hope this somebody takes advantage of using it. If not, I spent 15 minutes of my life talking to myself, which it wouldn't be the first time. Take care.